Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the Talk the Book episode number 122, which is being organized by AP State Council of Higher Education continuously for the last 2.5 years, which is a brainchild of our chairman, Professor K. Hemchandra, who himself is a vivid book reader in both the English as well as Telugu. He wanted to give an impression to the students that book reading is a must for this young generation because we are losing the importance of book reading and purchasing of books and other things. So to inculcate at least a habit of book reading through the next savvy students of the present generation who are also very busy with their academic schedules, to have any glimpse of these books which are being reviewed by the experts both in English as well as in Telugu. So today we have with us the English book review. Tuesdays with Morrie is a book which is authored by Mitch Albom. The reviewer is Namrata Priyam Rajkumari. She is a research scholar in English language education from the English and Foreign Language University, Hyderabad. She hails from the land of tea estate, Assam. She is a great lover of books. Her area of interest includes teaching Northeast and East Asian literature and making the student to understand the importance of books. Now, I'll leave it to you, Namrata, to review the book on Tuesdays with Morrie, which also has got a subtitle, An Old Man, a Young Man, and Life's Greatest Lessons from the Old Man. Now, I leave it to Namrata for the review.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, good evening to everyone. I hope I am audible to the audience. It filled me with really great pleasure to be a part of this wonderful program that is Talk the Book that I'm a part of today, reviewing one of my very favorite books. And this great initiative taken by the Andhra Pradesh State Council of Higher Education uh, calls out all the bibliophiles around India who are talking about books, who love reading books, and to ignite that one little spark of reading in all the young generation that are there who are watching the reviews. And at this moment, before I begin my presentation, all of us are here who loves books, who at least have, read one or two books somewhere in their life, in their school, somewhere in a very, when they are at leisure, also maybe they read books. So this quote is by Bacon, Francis Bacon, and he says that reading make it a full man. And this kind of resonates with the book that I'm going to review, which talks about the whole understanding of human community that we live in, the essence of what human being is, the round character that human being goes through from good to bad, and how we should look into the humanitarian side of it. That's what the book is all about. Tuesdays with Morrie. So I really appeal to the young people who are watching the review, the program, Talk the Book, that young boys and girls, they should go ahead, grab that one book that you have kept aside to be read for a very long time. It's high time. I think it's the time that you grab it and open it and start reading, because you never know, you have no actually idea what kind of world or universe that you're going to dive into. So please, do the honors as soon as possible. And also, it is my heartfelt gratitude. I offer my heartfelt gratitude to the organizing committee, Chairman Hemachandra Reddy sir, Coordinator Sri Bhaskar sir, and also Ramesh sir from Geetam University. And a special thanks goes to my mentor, Dr. Sri Hari, for letting me do this. All right, then I'll just share my screen, guys. Just give me a minute. I hope the screen is visible. Okay, so the book that I'm going to review today is Tuesdays with Morrie, an old man, a young man, and life's greatest lesson. And that is written by Mitch Albom. It is a book which is very close to me, I would say. I have read few books, but there are books that speak to you, that tells you, certain things that you imbibe from. So this is, I think, one of the book that for the first time I imbibed when I read it during my college days. And before I start the presentation, I would start with this quote I have taken from the book. You are not a wave, you are the part of the ocean. We'll delve into this quote as you reflect on this quote. We will take it towards the end of our conversation, our discussion. And also, before I begin, I want you to reflect on these four questions also that I have taken from the themes of the book. What do we mean when we say living life with purpose? How easy is it to forgive ourselves? Why do we fear dying? And the last one, have you read a book that speaks to you? So these are the four questions I will start with as you reflect, as something, one of the questions, or maybe all the questions resonate to you. I'll proceed. So let's get to know the author and the title, the details of the book that I have here. The title again is Tuesdays with Morrie, an old man, a young man, and life's greatest lesson. That is the entire title. The subtitle is An Old Man, a Young Man, and a Life's Greatest Lesson. That's the subtitle. And the author is again Mitch Albom. The publisher is Anchor Books, a division of Random House Inc., New York, and it was published in the year 1997. And the genre that the book falls under is a memoir, as we call it, or a self-help category. So a memoir is a narrative style of book that narrates the journey, a part of journey that the author gets into. It is in contrast with an autobiography where the author talks uh, uh, like the entire journey of his life. But memoir is again a French word, so that's why we pronounce it like this, memoir, and it's not memoir. It's from the memory of the author. It's a part of his life that he wants to share, and that's what the narrative, the plot line goes like. And on the other hand, it is a self-help category where the motivation, the author tends to instruct, motivate the readers to do a certain thing to help them, recognize the habits or a new way of living that the reader's looking for to solve a problem, maybe, right? So this is what self-help genre again is about. All right. So my story about this story is that uh, I came upon this book in the year 2015 when I was in college. It was a sudden glance that I saw in one of my seniors' room. We were in a hostel, so I saw this book, just the cover page. I did not see much of it. I just remember in flash because it was a sudden glance again. And I saw the just the title, Tuesdays and Morrie. This. That's all I saw. And I saw that it has been read by many people in our hostel, and that's what kept inside me. And I did not pay much attention to it later. Also, that I would read this book. I did not make my mind then. But then there was a time when I was just browsing some reading materials in our library in our college, and there in the library again I came upon the book, and then I saw like, yeah, oh, this is the book that I saw back then. And I just took it and I read the blurb of it, the backside of the page, and something interested me. I don't know, like the connection of mankind that a person wrote. Mitch Albom's book is a gift to mankind. So this is the first blurb, the first edition I read, and this is something stayed with me. So I thought, okay, let's give it a try. I'm anyway free. I'll just, hop on this book and start reading. So that was my story of coming across this little piece of reading. And how were my responses back then? So if you can see over here, I have reread it twice. So the first time when I read it, my response was that I bawled my eyes out because it was definitely emotionally saturating experience for me when I was reading it. It made me cry a lot. It made me think because there were certain things that came up in the story that stayed with me, and it was like a stirring moment for me. The language I found was very simple to understand, was very grasping, and themes were about purposeful living and spiritual guide kind of a in outlook it had. It was a lot of instructions that were there to to grow yourself spiritually back then. So that's what again intrigued me. Then in my second reading that I did after like 8 years, just recently in March 2023, I thought I would reread this and again experience the same thing that I felt once in 2015. Again, the same experience was there. I bawled my eyes out. I cried a lot, and this time I questioned the book. Yeah, so there were a lot of questions that came into my mind, and the language was again very simple. It was grasping. There were no any hard word or any phrase that I would not understand. But there were themes that again I have to refer back to. So the precise expression of the conversations that Morrie, the professor, and the student Mitch has. So these were the things that again grasped me. The themes were same, and again I added that compassion and empathy that they were also talking about. These were all the simple philosophy of life. There was nothing very huge to deal with. Then in the third reading that I did for the review, it was moving. Yeah, yet again it is simple, grasping. It is precise in expression. But here, because I read it for the third time, I felt it was preachy. Like it was trying to persuade me to do something. Like it had that feeling that I have to do this, and you should be like this. You should behave like this. So that's something I felt like okay, now I should, I think, give it a break. Also, the language is reflective, which again I came across because now when I observed in my third reading, the author himself was reflecting on his life juxtaposed to the conversation that he was having with his professor. So there were a lot of reflection that the author was doing, which made me also think about it. And the themes were purposeful living, yeah, compassion, empathy. And this time, one thing I recognized was forging human bonds. Okay, forging humane bonds. These are bonds that are tender. These are filled with love. These are the things that we pay attention in our relationships with whoever we are. So this is what my responses were. And now talking about the characters of the book, there are two main characters and many other minor characters. The first two main characters are Professor Morrie and Mitch Albom, the writer himself. And yeah, as I already mentioned, this is a memoir. That means it is a real life story that has been written from the perspective of Mitch Albom, the author. So who is Morrie and why are we talking about him? Morrie was a sociology professor. He was a very avid dancer. He loved dancing. He was a father. Most importantly, he was a mentor. And he was a mentor to Mitch Albom, the mentee. So these were his very interesting qualities as a professor. He was a dancer also. He loved dancing. He used to do rock and roll back in the 80s in America. And he would, it was written in the book that he would go after his college and he would go into a club where there are rock and roll dancers, and he would take part in that and he would dance himself, and he did it till he was contracted with this disease. And what did he teach? He was a sociology professor, so he taught social psychology, mental health at Brandeis University until 1995. That means he taught after his annulment year also, after the age of 60 also, he continued teaching. He did not leave until ALS happened. That's the year 1994, actually, when he was diagnosed with this incurable disease, that is ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, uh, which put us an end to the things that he loved to do. Yeah, it's mentioned in the in the chapters of the book that things stopped, the life came to a halt for Professor Morrie because he was a very vibrant and a flamboyant person who would go dancing, who loved teaching, and his teaching were not career oriented. His teachings were more personality oriented. Okay, so the teachings that he did, like mental health and social psychology, talked about how you trust people, how you make these, a bond in society, how you build up relationships with people. That's what he taught. And he taught practically, not in theories that he did. And that's what was special about Morrie Swartz. To talk about his background, where he comes from, he was a Russian immigrant in America, and he came from a very, economically, a lower background. So his father was a carpenter, again from Russia. And through thick and thin, the father tried to bring up the two kids, that is Morrie and his younger brother. And meanwhile, when they were growing up, Morrie's mother passed away, and that was a setback, a huge setback for Morrie. That taught him a lot of life lessons that he also mentions in the book. But yet, faith has those beautiful things that that takes away from you but gives you back, right? So it is not very cruel, and that's what Morrie had in his life in the form of his stepmother. And his stepmother was a beacon, kind of a light in his life when she came into his life, because she was the person who inspired him to read. Isn't it beautiful? She was the person who told him that poverty is nothing if you elevate yourself through education. And that's what she did. She inspired Morrie and his brother to read, to go to school, to become a good person, to become a human being, good, better human beings. And that's why in childhood also Morrie clung to his stepmother, and she was a great influence in Morrie's life, that he became a professor at a very prestigious university in America. Now, coming back to Mitch Albom, who is he? He is the author of the book, who happens to be the mentee, a student at Brandeis University, again, of Morrie Swartz. And he was interested, he had interest in music. He almost became a musician, but then fate took him in a very different path, and he had to forego that musician path, and he stepped into the career of sports journalism. So he became a journalist, where he kept himself busy to ignore society, to ignore family. These aspects in his life came about. So this is a mirror. This is a quite a contrasting life that the professor and his student had. So Mitch was like that. He was into the world. He was into the career. He was into his ambitions that he was trying to fulfill. He wanted more. He got more, and he was all into the materialistic world, as Morrie calls it. And also, he happens to be the author of many books that he published in his lifetime. That is the Five People who you meet in heaven, For One More Day, Have a Little Faith. These are all his books. Moving on, what is this disease that we are talking about? This is ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It is a neuromuscular disease that generally starts with the extremities of the body, and it starts from the from the legs, and it goes upward. So the mind stays healthy in this disease. but somehow your bodily functions become immobile. And one of the personalities that contracted this was this famous scientist, Stephen Hawking. And he was an inspiration to many of our generations that he lived for 45 years after even contracting this disease. So all throughout the, news or lives of these people, we see that although they had, these certain adversities in their life, but they came about all these adversities. They, they tried to move on from the problems that they had and made a beautiful life for themselves. The structure of the book, if we see, it's a very interesting thing again. If you look into the content page, it is designed in a ideation of a classroom, yeah, a structure of a school, a university. So it starts with a curriculum, then a syllabus, then it has the audiovisual that we always implement in our school, the orientation. Before any class, we always give students orientation about how the classes are going to be, how many credits you have to take, etc. Then what's the classroom like? Okay, these are all the contents that we discover. And in each of these contents, if we take about the first content, it talks about the wholesome, the entirety of the book. It gives the gist of the book in the first lesson, in the first chapter itself. So this is what it is. And they talk for 14 days. That means they meet on a Tuesday every week. And for almost 14 Tuesdays, these two met and they talked about nothing but life. Okay. And that was Mitch Albom's final thesis that they did together with his professor. Okay, so the first chapter that I talked about, it gives you the entire glimpse in this one paragraph of the book. The first chapter in the curriculum, which Album writes, the last class of my old professor's life took place once a week in his house by a window in the study where we could watch a small hibiscus plant shade its pink leaves. The class met on Tuesdays. It began after breakfast. The subject was the meaning of life. It was taught from experience. So this is what the book, is about. It's a philosophy of life in very, very simple terms, where Mitch Albom, after much ado, after a gap of 16 years, finally gets to meet his professor love and tenderness that he had had, because he says that Morrie is his uh, favorite professor. Okay, is his favorite professor. And when the curriculum begins, it begins with the fact that how the class went on. It went on every Tuesday, yeah, and there were no grading, there was no evaluation, and the thesis was the final thesis, and it came into the form of a book. This book was the final thesis. And he says that throughout the entire curriculum that he learned about many facets of life, like simple things of, like, love, respect, family bonding, simplicity, spirituality, all these things. He learned when he was, when he learned the book. I will have to take you back to the syllabus. Then the syllabus, okay, is just the gist of the book. The syllabus talked about how Morrie was fine until his 65th year while he was teaching at the Brandeis University. And one day, all of a sudden, when he was taking his class, he felt out of breath, and that was the beginning of that was the beginning of his disease. That was the beginning of a realization that dawned upon him suddenly that he cannot do the things that he loves to do. So that was the syllabus. And the syllabus works around how Morrie contracted this disease and what he loved doing. He loved teaching. He loved dancing. He loved going out for swimming. And all this came to a halt suddenly when they got to know that he has a neuromuscular disease in the form of ALS. But did he stop doing that? He didn't. He although he was in the wheelchair, he went for his last class, and he took the class and he finally bid goodbye to the university. So that was the syllabus. And who was the student? The student over here is Mitch Albom, who was very much into his life. He is bogged down by his work, and he doesn't realize for the 16 years that he has not contacted his professor. When there is a reflection after this chapter, it's a beautiful, a piece of writing that Mitch Albom writes, that when he was graduating, the last day of his graduation, when they have the convocation, he promised his professor that I will keep in contact, but he did not keep contact with his professor. He did not went back to the professor. So that is what also happens to our life sometimes. Even if we make promises, sometimes we do not, remember to keep the promises. And that's what happened to Mitch Albom also. He also, got busy with his life and he forgot who Morrie Swartz was and what he taught. So that's what happened to the student. And there was very a moment when he again comes about his professor. He rediscovers his professor during the chapter, the audio visual. So it is again a very a real life when Morrie is on the wheelchair and he is almost giving up his legs. His legs doesn't work, and he cannot move about. So that's when news reporting channel, that is the ABC's channel in America, they discover Morrie and they do a talk show with Morrie, and the host Ted Koppel, who was very famous in America back then, who does a talk show with Morrie. And that time, when he was just flipping through the channel, which album rediscovers his professor during the audiovisual chapter. So he has almost forgotten about the professor, but when he sees that this is the person, the headline goes like, "Old professor, becomes ready to die." Okay, and that was a very catchy phrase that he saw in the headline. And then he immediately he is stunned to even think that my professor exists till now, and he was not even able to remember him until then. So in the classroom chapter, he immediately goes back to the place that Morrie's from, and he meets his professor to start their final thesis in the form of these 14 chapters. So this is what Tuesdays with Morrie is. So the title itself tells you what kind of a universe Mitch Albom created for his readers. So all throughout the 14 Tuesdays, they talked about life and all the aspects of life that influences the human beings. The writing style of this book is in the form of a narration style. Okay, it's a narrative style where the author is reflecting on his past, in contrast to the present that he is with the professor. As he's conversing with the professor, he reflects upon his life, what he left, what he's doing, how he's not realizing what he's doing, how he doesn't know the value of his life. So this is all the reflective style the author inculcates. And the tone is also very conversational. At one point, you would really feel that you are, watching a movie, and you're watching Mitch and Morrie talking about their lives as they are conversing. So it's a very, filled with imagery when you read the book. And the use of aphorism is also very interesting. Aphorisms are short, pithy sentences that instructs or or comes works like a maxim, like a quotation. So there are many aphorisms that Morrie uses to talk about life, and there is a technique of flashback again, where he is reflecting about his old life, where he is reflecting about the times when he met Morrie for the first time, how he took his sociology classes, and he again, comes back to the present situation with Morrie when at his home. Thirdly, the expression during the conversation is very succinct. You understand each and every line. There is the style is so simple that you would not even feel like there is a huge complex idea that the author is saying. So this is how Mitch Albom writes, and while he's writing, he makes you feel the reader that you are present in the moment. It's so intimate and inspiring, the a kind of storytelling that you'd feel that you'd also want to do this in your life. You'd also want to imbibe one of the qualities that Morrie is sharing. So this is a very interesting part of the book, and the themes of the book again emerges. Like I found the four themes that I could recognize. First of all, Mori talks about rejection of popular culture, cultural mores in favor of self-created values. Now, if we look at the first phrase, rejection of popular culture, we will immediately come to think about the culture that we are living in right now, the popular cultural mores. Yeah, something of a bandwagon that we want to follow. Everyone's following, something, and we would also want to keep up with that. Yeah, we see a lot of reels and stories, and we see that the person is, bought this kind of a thing, and I should also buy this. This is a human tendency, economical tendency that we always go through. So he questions the very crux of it, like, do you really have to follow the bandwagon, or can you have a self-regulated value for your own self, the principles that you can stand by, the your soul identity as a person? Can you do that? Can you build up something on that? So this is what the recurrent theme of the book is, because for example, when he talks about the rat race that we are in, everybody knows that we want to achieve things, we are going towards it, and the competition, the air of competition that we have, it's everywhere nowadays, if we see in our world. But while doing the wheel of life, the going through the rat race, are you also realizing what kind of a person you are? Yeah. So this what applies to Morrie, and in large context it applies to all of us as a reader. So which things, like so I am a sports journalist today. I can be a celebrity journalist tomorrow, and I am writing in newspapers, this and that, I'm achieving. But what about his family? He's not in contact with his family. The brother that he has is not in contact with him, and he is ignorant of it. He doesn't give much attention to that aspect. So that is what through the character, through Mitch, the author, we are also reflecting in our lives in that theme. And then he talks about love each other or perish. So this is a reference from W.H. or Auden's poem, uh, where Auden is a very famous war poet who used to write in the 80s. So he in the 80s and 90s, yeah. And Auden talks about in his poem, 1st September 1939, that is his poem, where he mentions he laments the outcome of World War II. Okay, and in that poem, he through the lamentation of World War II, he mentions this line, like, love each other or perish. You love, or you might as well die, because if you do not live with love, uh, you you're not a human being. Okay, the very essence of being a human is what we have this compassion. That's what makes us different as a species. So through the poem of W.H. Auden, Morrie also talks about loving each other, loving your society, loving your family, or you might not as well, live. So this is what the theme is about. And then acceptance through detachment. Now, this also is a very highly philosophical idea because when Morrie says that, for example, if you go through a pain, in simple words, if he says, if you go through a pain, you go through it wholly. If you go through pleasure, you go through it wholly. If you are somewhere, you live in the present, otherwise, you will have regrets. Yeah. And when you go through it wholly, if you feel the moments or if you feel the emotion in its entirety, in all its complexities, you would be able to detach from it. You would be able to come out of it. And then you'll say, like, okay, now let me experience something else. So this is what detachment, acceptance of detachment is. Now, this concept is also, I'll be talking about it in our later, uh, this thing, in our later slides. The last theme that I came across was living in the moment to appreciate life. So here also he says that when we are present or we are doing something as simple as conversing with someone, as simple as, telling someone to do something, just a chat also is very precious, because when you are listening to that person, when you're giving the attention to that person, it's a very big deal for that person who you're talking to. Okay, if you're listening, if you're paying attention, it means that you're showing love to those people, and that's how people, become aware that, yeah, I'm valued, like I am being listened to, there's someone that I can listen to, that somebody's listening to me. So this is what people feel good about. For example, if you also talk to someone and he says, like, oh, this is nothing, you just have to come, move on with it, and you feel, devalidated, your feelings, your thoughts are not validated, how would you feel? So this is the same thing Morrie also wants to highlight through this book. So if we begin with the discussion, I'll start with the beautiful quote that Morrie, the aphorism that I found in Morrie's one of the chapters. The most important thing in life is to give out love and to let it come in. We give love so that we let it come in. I am the chapters are divided into again 21 chapters, and the later 14 chapters talk about all the aspects of life, as I already discussed. So I have condensed it into small chunks of the 14 Tuesdays and made it into 4 slides. So I hope you'd be able to drive home something. So yeah, the first aspect of the first 3 chapters, like precisely, is that the world we inhabit, the world that we live in, right? And our position in the world. Who are we as a person? Okay, who are you as a person? If we are working, if we are there in the society, what is our identity in the society? This is what he's trying to talk. Because first of all, Morrie is trying to accept that he's going to die. Yeah, he has already accepted it. So in one of his interviews with the person Ted Koppel that he talks with in ABC channel, he says that the interviewer asks, so are you doing this because you cannot wait to die? So are you getting ready to die? This is his question. And then Morrie, with his feeble voice, he says, no, I'm not talking about going to die. I'm talking about how to live. How to live. Because anyway, we are going to die. Okay, let's accept it. But in the process of dying, we're also living, right? So how do we live? Okay, as a person, what is our position in the society? Because as a human being, we are dependent. Uh, we are dependent on people that are around us. We're dependent on the society that around us. As simple as now he is bedridden. Now he cannot do anything. To eat food, also he has to call his wife. He has to call his help to feed him. So that much now he's dependent on. And before that, also he was dependent because he wanted to see himself as a better professor. And for that reason, he said he was dependent on his students to see him as a better mentor. to see him as a better professor. So there is always a play of dependency that human beings always strive to do. Even if we say like we are free and we do not want anyone, to support us, and we are independent and this and that, we are as a species dependent. Okay, this is what we are built into. And dependency is some kind of a habit that we live in unconsciously. Also, there's an unconscious feeling of empathy that we also should feel. And that's what Morrie says when he when Mitch asks, when Mitch Albom asks that, like they were just conversing, and they say that, that day I just came across this newspaper article where the people of Bosnia, back in 90s, the country of Bosnia was going through riot, okay, kind of war, Bosnian war, that's what they call. And during that phase, mm, Miss Albom says that I have been reporting all these news that people are getting killed in Bosnia, and this and that is happening. Sort of violence, sort of hatred that people are, throwing on each other. So what about that? Where is the empathy of those people? Why are people killing each other? Okay, and see, look at Mitch. Like Mitch Albom doesn't even feel anything. Like he is a reporter who's reporting the death of people, thousands and thousands of people. Now, Morrie says, yeah, I saw that news and I cried. Yeah, that's what his response is. Like he's saying that I saw the news, whatever you're saying, but I felt so much for those poor people. I felt so much for that riot, for the people who are getting killed, the lives getting lost, the families getting all disabandoned. So I'm feeling for that, and I cried that day. So that's what death does to you. You realize all of a sudden that you're a whole new person. Yeah. And Morrie is also in the process, in the journey of realizing all the humanly qualities that we have, that empathy. And he just says that why do we have to do it just before our death? Yeah. Why can't we do it while we are living? So this is a question that he asks himself. Now that I'm dying, I'm realizing all that. But what was I doing when I was living? And for that, he feels sorry for himself. Okay, he feels that I am sorry that I could not feel all these feelings back then, but now as I am saying, as the words are coming out of my from me, I want Mitch also to spread these humanly qualities to the readers as well. So he says that you feel guilty, yeah, this is there. You feel the regret, you feel sorry for yourself, but come out of it, snap out of it, because whatever has happened has happened. Now what you have to do is get to do something different. Okay, get to feel something different. You do not have to be sorry for yourself every time, and that's what is going to take you down. That if you feel, oh, I could not do this, I could not get it, I did not qualify for something, that will not help you to achieve that, right? You have to again re-strategize your things and see the direction that you want to go to. So this is what he says. All these things we feel, yeah, these are all contradictory things. Yeah, we feel the empathy, at the same time we also feel sorry for it. Like, why didn't we even feel it? So he says that go, move on, move ahead with it. And another interesting thing that he talks, that they talk about love and compassion. They talk about being grateful to the people around you, because as Mitch is immobile now, he cannot go to the bathroom, he cannot, eat his food. He is feeling all the more grateful to the people who are there with him. Like there are thousands of colleagues who are coming to his place to meet him, to greet him, to ask about his health. There are many students that come. There is a huge TV channel which is, who does this interview for at least thrice to understand who Morrie is. So all these people are giving him so much of attention. So he loves the attention. Okay, and he also is being very, very grateful to this person, because he's accepting the greetings. He's accepting the love of those people. So Mitch has this question that what about the missed opportunities that you have? So while they're talking about many things, and he asks Morrie. Like, aren't you, don't you regret, or don't you have any regrets of, missing something? So again, he says that, yeah, I know, we feel all this regret, but our culture doesn't encourage us to think in such ways. Yeah, it always tells you to, you did wrong, so you are a culprit. Something happened to you and you could not achieve, the ambition that you aim for. So you did not do well to achieve that. So that's what our culture tells us. That's what our society tells you to, think. So this is what we have to undo. We have to undo the societal dictatorship that always goes on into our mind. And thinking about death, thinking that death is something that you should not, shy from, you should not talk about. That's also one point that he brings in the next part. He has this very, a wholesome theme of acceptance through detachment that we already talked about. Now, this philosophy he takes from the Buddhist philosophy and the Hindu philosophy. The Buddhist philosophy talks about the bhava chakra. So in Buddhism, he says you would expect that anytime, okay, any time of the moment, there is a bird that sits on our shoulder and it asks, it whispers, "Is this the time? Is today the time that we are going to go?" And if the bird says no, this is not the time, that means you're not dying that moment. So he talks about death in the next three chapters. He talks about how people are ashamed to talk about death, how people fear to talk about death. They do not accept death as a natural phenomena, that it's something very it is, yeah, people doesn't live, you do not have the loved one with you. So of course, so that's what our culture has told us to do. You do not talk about that, like, casually. So he brings in that theme. He says that it's a spiritual development when you think about all this. Okay, when you do not accept what your culture has been teaching you, and you build up all these values for yourself, it's a spiritual development that you're going through. Okay, and then you start valuing the relationships. You do not take them for granted. You value the universe around you. You value the society that you're living in around you. You start seeing your world in a different way that Morrie is going through now. Okay, and he says that I'm lucky that I at least got these many days to rebel in death. Okay, I know that I'm dying, but I also know that I have to live as much as I can till I reach that point. So he brings in the philosophy, this philosophy, and he brings in the philosophy of detachment from the Hindu scriptures, where in one of the lines, a sloka of Bhagavad Gita says that detachment is not when something owns you. Okay, yeah, detachment is nothing that you have to that you own something. It's not about that. Okay, leaving the things that you own, but it is something that doesn't own you. Okay, it is something that you always do not hold on to, but you can let it go. That is what detachment is. And while Morrie is, realizing the power of living to the fullest, he also realizes, that family is the greatest support that he can get. His two sons that he has brought up are very, good people that they have become, and they are there with him. His wife is with him. His all the relatives, all the far off, students who do not even are related to him through blood are with him. So family is like a spiritual security that he finds. And again, yeah, in the chapter, in the, I think, sixth meeting of the Tuesday, they talk about Odin's poem, September 1, and they talk about how loving each other is the greatest of elements we can hold on to in life. Yeah, so only love is the main essence, is the very essence of living a life. And if we do not live with it, if we live with that void, that there's no love, and we are just blind by the worldly things and whatever we have to do, it's better than not living. So this is what he talks about in the chapters. And finally, he says that to fully feel an emotion, you have to get detached. Okay, so the fear of death that he is almost, away from, he doesn't fear of dying. Why? Because he has detached from that feeling of death. He has fully absorbed in himself that, okay, things are going to be like this, and let me just live it fully so that I'm not afraid of it. Yeah, so this is the detachment, acceptance of detachment theme appears. In the next discussion, we will see how we can make our life a meaningful one. So, in this book, there's a recurrent theme of making our lives meaningful. You do not live by, these moments, by the ambitions that you live by, but the money that you live with, how much you have achieved, how much you have got. So these are not the things that human beings should live by. So it's an instruction into, how to live a meaningful, fulfilling, purposeful life. Yeah, without doing much. So the first thing is aging. All of us are pretty afraid of aging. And I've heard some people also say, like, I do not want to go through that phase at all. And when we hear some elderly people, they will say, back then when I was young, I used to do this, I used to do that. Yeah. So Morrie says that if somebody says that, that means they have not lived their life to the fullest. When you're young, when you're 18, you do things what 18-year-old person should do. You cannot do that in 22 years, or you cannot do that in 84, 88, when you're 85. So when you're 22, whatever the age requires you to do, you fill it into your veins, and you realize that these are the ages that I have lived, and you live with no regrets. So this is a very beautiful concept, an idea. And aging also makes people again dependent on the family, because if you can see in the picture, Morrie also is getting help from Mitch and his family members. So they have become baby, the aged people who cannot move, who take help from their walking stick or anything. They have become dependent on things, or they have become dependent on people, so they go back to being a child. And what he says, he loves it. Okay, he has no regrets about being in that age, the age of not able to do anything. He doesn't regret it. He says that I have gone back to being a child, and I'm more dependent on people, and it's fine when some people take care of you. I really love that. And with age, it brings you knowledge. So the body is anyway decaying, right? The body is decaying, your skin will start to loosen up, you'll become weak, and things are happening to your body, but your soul is getting the knowledge. You as a person are becoming more matured and knowledgeable. So that's one thing he says. And whatever you do, you just take the simple thing and make it very pleasurable. Okay, the simple thing of watching a bird, the simple thing of walking into a park, simple thing of talking to a lost friend, a long lost friend that you suddenly met, like Mitch and Morrie. So those simple things are very important moments in our life, and we should be able to realize it without having to think that it's wasting my time or anything of that sort. And when it comes to economy, when it comes to money and power, he says that these can never be substitute for tenderness. How much ever money you get, how much ever power you get, people want you, or looks at you with the love that you give. Okay, with the tenderness that you greet people, that you talk to people. That's what is more meaningful than money and power. And there is a difference between need and want when you have this economically stable life. So then you'll realize what you need in life. You need food to live, you need water to survive, but you want an object. Okay, you want an expensive phone. Okay, so do not get confused with the need. You do not need an expensive phone. You can still live with the a phone that you can call and that you can click nice beautiful pictures with. So you do not so that's the difference between need and want. Okay, so we should as a human being we should realize this difference between need and want, so that we know where we are going and where we are spending, and so that we are not finicky about our money getting spent on things. And lastly, he talks about giving love to people. That's again there, pervaded in all his chapters, that giving love and attention to people is what people deserve, is what people value. When they come to you, when they talk to you, this is what Morrie wants. So when Morrie is in the wheelchair, there are millions of people who's coming to talk to him about their problems. So he waits patiently for each one of them to turn up and they tell about what kind of problem are you going through, tell me. He cannot solve certain problems, but he can definitely listen to, right? So that is a very significant aspect of giving people the value. And the final theme that came out again in the last 2-3 chapters, 13-14 Tuesdays, he talks about forgiveness and forgiving not only others but yourself. Things that you could not do, that you had for yourself and you could not achieve. Do not take it with you. Get it away from you and forgive yourself, okay, of things that you could not do to yourself. And accept death as a natural process. Do not shy away from death. It is very natural to a human being, and all of us at one point are going to go from this life. So why don't we live our life thinking that anyway we are going to go, so why don't I live it fully? Okay, it's not the concept of anyway I'm going to die, so why do I have to do it? Why do I have to achieve? Yeah, these are the questions that you can say, like Morrie's contradicting himself. But Morrie's simple philosophy is that anyway you're going to die, so why don't you just revel in it? Why don't you live it to the fullest? So he insists all of his readers to do it, so that you live a meaningful life with love, and that you love the people that makes your life more meaningful. Yeah, all our lives are filled with people that we respect, that we value, and our friends, family, all of us around us. So we need to uh, accept their existence. We need to accept the fact that they add something to our life, they add value to our life, something that we would not have gotten from a simple thing like a phone, or for any other materialistic thing. And being present in the moment with people is also very important when you're talking to them. And giving love and attention to people is something also you need to have. So few takeaways after reading the book. I'm not going to, there's a narration that talks about Morrie's life, about Mitch's life, and how they, come to the final thesis. So you have to go back, read the book, so that you realize what happens to Morrie at the end. Okay, and how his final thesis also comes to existence. So the final takeaways, the significant takeaways that I, understood from these books, from this book, is that life is not a bed of roses. Yeah, we also know it. We have heard it meant millions and millions of times. Like life is not a bed of roses. Adversities would be there any moment of your time, and you should be ready with it. Okay, and how do we come out from this adversity? How do we come out of the difficult times? We have to have fortitude. Fortitude is a beautiful word that I learned from this book. Okay, the first time in 2015, I got to learn this word fortitude. Like, what is this beautiful word, fortitude? And fortitude is nothing but courage to live through your adversities. Okay, resilience that we call resilience to resist the troubling times is fortitude, and that will help you sail through your difficult times. And nobody would know. Oh, sorry, anybody would know. The point is to understand. So all of us, we sleepwalk in our real lives. Morrie says, like, we are not aware of what people are going through, what we do not understand what they need, what they want. So we always know, yeah, we always try to know that, yeah, he's like this, he wants this, but we do not try to understand what is the value of that person requires. So try to understand people, try to understand the society around us. Yeah, it's a very simple concept, but in a large this thing. And to live not with regrets. Okay, let's not live with regrets. Let's make every moment of our lives count. Let's value the people, the things that we are doing, and look world in a very different way. And this is what Professor Morrie talks about as he dances away, in rock and roll, with his vibrant personality. He lives us a legacy of what human beings are expected to do. And why would you read this book now? Why now? I would recommend this book to all of you, to young generation especially, because first of all, it's a real life story of Professor Morrie Swartz, who went through this disease, and he came about. He fought the disease not through any medicine, but the dint of his will, the dint of his the fervor of life that he always wanted to pursue. And the narration is very simple, going back and forth in the narration. Okay, there's a flashback technique that binds the story together, so you will not feel like these are like different pieces that I'm reading. It engages the reader in a very moving way. Like, maybe after reading the first five Tuesdays that Mitch writes, you might end up crying. Okay, so it's a very moving story, yet very simple in nature. It's about a person, just like you and I, who is just trying to enjoy life as much as possible. And it caters to adult groups of all the age groups. I read it in my 20s when I was 20 years old. It spoke to me volumes and volumes of things. It definitely spoke to me when I am in my late 20s. So it will, it has a very all pervasive nature of themes that we see in our day-to-day lives, but we fail to understand them. Okay, so if you grab this book, if you start reading, you'll understand what life is all about. And it is a guide to lead a meaningful life. That's all this book is about. And before I come to an end, I conclude. There's a beautiful story that Mitch, shares. Okay, while they are talking about life and everything, and this is the first quote that I started with: "You are not a wave, but you are part of the ocean." So, what does he mean by that? So, he shares a story of a wave. Okay, a sea wave that comes along, and he is enjoying, or she is enjoying, the wave is enjoying, okay, the journey. And he sees that the other waves that are coming are getting crashed by the shore, are becoming nothing by the shore. Okay, and he gets all panicky, like, what is going to happen to me? I'm going to become nothing, I'm going to perish once I get to the shore. So he becomes all tense, and he sees and looks, where do I go? The wave cannot go back, right? Once it only touches the shore, it can go back by becoming nothing. And so he sees the other forthcoming wave, and he asks, like, can't you see, all of us are going to perish and no waves are going to be there? So that second wave says that, did you forget? You did not understand, right? You are not a wave, you are part of the ocean. Okay, so this is a bigger idea that that we can all take home, that we are always living our life one day at a time. We feel that we are the individuals that are going through, but if you look deeper into your lives, you're also part of a universe that we can, something we can contribute to, right? Something that we are part of a bigger whole of something that we are included in, and we should make use of that to the fullest. Okay, that's the idea. That's the a takeaway message that I would leave all the audience with. And yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for listening to me patiently.
Okay,
Thank
Namrata.
you, sir.
So it is nice of you for presenting a philosophical book which is appropriate even for this present generation, because though it was about the different system, but it is applicable everywhere in the world, into the all kinds of nature. So on behalf of every statements of higher education, I thank you for presenting a good philosophical, thought-provoking, beautiful book for our students. Thank you.